Greetings, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining me on the planet. I'm just going to put my lighting up a bit because it just seems to be a little bit, that's a bit better, that's a bit better. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. Hi, thanks for joining. So today's session is all about 5 signs that you're ready to start the healing process. How do you know when you're ready to start the healing process? What does it look like? What do you need to know? All of these things are so important, to think about when to know if you are understanding, where you are and if you're ready to actually start the process. So, hi, thanks everybody who's coming in. So what I want to do today is really kind of explore 5 things with you, five things that you need to be aware of, that you are actually ready to begin this amazing journey of finding yourself. But before I get into the content, I'm just going to share, for those of you that are new to my page, I'm just going to go through a few little things that might help you to understand what I'm about and all the rest of it. So I'm a mum, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm also a psychotherapist in training, I'm a retreat facilitator, I'm a speaker, writer, so many different things, and I absolutely adore what I do. And I teach Black women who struggle with self-love, sisterhood and sobriety. So I came into doing this work, I started my own healing process back in 2009. And I went into 12-step recovery off the back of a really painful, destructive string of abusive relationships, and I needed to figure out what the hell was going on. So went into recovery, went into therapy, had an amazing experience. Hi, thanks for joining. Had an amazing experience, but realised that there was no cultural context. I didn't understand how to figure out how being a Black woman, how living under the system of racism, how that kind of applied to my healing process. So, throughout my process, I just became obsessed with reading books, exploring different things, and asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research around how that applies, understanding what racism is as a system and all of that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, the light bulbs just started going off. I really began to understand the reasons why I felt I had such low self-esteem, why I didn't like myself, why I kept finding myself in these relationships that, quite frankly, just offered me crumbs. And that's not what I'm about. That's not really what I wanted. But I began to understand why I found myself in those situations, and hence the reason why I decided to start training as a therapist, and why I started sharing a lot more publicly on this platform. And that's how The Art of Greatness was born, by me just sharing these things and being really open and honest about my own process. So that's a little bit about me, if you don't know anything about my work or anything that I do. So yeah, it's just been an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful now to be sharing all of the tools and things that I've done over the years with you to obviously help you with your process. So that's a little bit about me. So just a little bit of housekeeping as well. I also run a wellness mastermind for Black women, and at the moment we've got it's just a really amazing space. And at the moment we've been talking a lot about the holidays and all of that kind of stuff. Obviously with Christmas around the corner, if you're in the States, obviously you're celebrating Thanksgiving. There's Kwanzaa and all the rest of it. All of these events that happen over this period of time. And sometimes it brings up a lot of anxiety in a lot of us, especially if you have difficult relationship with family members, not really sure how to deal with it. So this month in the mastermind, we've been exploring what the holidays mean what are our holiday values, what are the challenges, what are the difficulties, especially with everything that's going on at the moment with COVID. What does all of that mean in terms of how we're going to celebrate everything this year? And maybe you don't celebrate it at all. This is not just for people that celebrate it. Maybe you don't celebrate it and you just want to create a space of peace. It's all about exploring and planning out what you want to do, even if you don't celebrate the holidays. So that's what we've been talking about in the mastermind this month. The replays and stuff are all available for the stuff that we've been doing. And so this Saturday is the final session around that topic, and basically it's a healing circle check-in where we also explore the characteristics of self-hate. What does it look like? How does it show up in your behaviour? We explore the tools for empowerment. So I give you all of the little you know, the experiences and the tools and the resources and stuff that I use as well, and that I've learned over the years to be able to deal with how to love yourself in a much better way. And then we also explore the gifts of sacred self-love. How does your life change when you start doing this work? So the Healing Circle check-in is something that we do on a bi-weekly basis in between the masterclasses and the live streams and stuff like that. So not the live stream, the live Q&A. So if you're interested in joining us for the mastermind, for the membership for the Healing Circle this Sunday, you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. There are different levels as well that you can come into the mastermind. So depending on your budget, how you invested you want to be, how much time you want to hang out with me and the ladies in the mastermind, you can choose different levels. So have a look and see if there's anything there that's going to suit you. Okay, so that's the housekeeping out of the way. So for those of you that have just joined, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. And today's topic is 5 signs to know that when you're ready. 5 signs to understand when you're ready to start the healing process. Okay, if there's anything that I share in this live stream that you don't understand, or you want more information or expansion on what I'm talking about, please feel free to either drop a note in the comments, or you can send me a direct message, or you can email me info@guardianofgreatness.com if you don't feel comfortable. Okay, and also to remember that what I'm sharing today is not a substitute for seeing a licensed mental health professional. So I do offer one-on-one sessions as well, so you can inbox me and I can you can book a session with me there, or you can just go to the link, click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. Okay, so the 5 signs. How do you know when you're ready to start the healing process? Okay, number 1 is loneliness. Okay, now I know a lot of us don't really like to admit that we're lonely, or that that we're doing stuff by ourselves, or that we're in pain and stuff like that. But loneliness is one of the core reasons why a lot of the ladies come and decide to start doing this work. And the reason why loneliness is so prevalent is because many of the ladies that I work with, they've spent quite a long time before they actually reach out, doing a lot of this stuff by themselves. They read a lot of self-help books by themselves. They might listen to podcasts by themselves. But because they feel so uncomfortable, and some of them have been wounded by other black women. Some of them have got, because they've got, mother wounds and stuff like that. So they find it uncomfortable. And they come in, a lot of them come in and say, I don't really trust other black women. And so there's an added pain of, yes, I want to heal, but I feel uncomfortable, or I don't trust other black women because of pain I have around them. I might not even be conscious that the difficult relationship that you have with your mum or other black women in your family means that you can't step into a healing space with other black women because you're afraid of what that's going to bring up. So you end up doing a lot of this work by yourself. And I say that because that was my story as well. But it just became, I started feeling so isolated, and it was just so difficult and so painful to do that stuff by myself, that I just had to reach out and start thinking about ways that I could start to unpick what was going on. So, if you've been doing a lot of this work by yourself, and you're starting to feel quite isolated and frustrated about having to do it alone, and you're ready to kind of reach out, because there's only so much that you can learn by yourself. There's only so much that you can learn by yourself. A lot of times we need that. We need a space. We need somebody to be able to mirror back at us in a compassionate, empathetic way that's going to affirm their pain, that's going to understand their pain and help them understand themselves. So, you can't understand that a lot of times when you're trying to do it by yourself. There's only so much that you can learn. This is what's powerful about seeing a therapist or doing group work or whatever. Okay, so that's number 1, loneliness. Okay, number 2 is you're feeling stuck. Number 2 is you're feeling stuck. Now, sometimes in the healing process, you can get stuck in, when you're trying to figure stuff out, because there's so much pain there, you can get stuck in blame. And that's not to say that these things didn't happen, because a lot of times, a lot of us have been wounded by family members, they've been wounded by ex-partners, they've been wounded by, what it means to live under the system of racism. And so we're carrying all of this stuff, and we understand that the reason why we behave the way we behave, or why we feel the way we feel, is because other people have crossed our boundaries, they've been abusive to us. You know, they've shamed us. You know, there's so many different things. They've been violent. You know, some of us have had to deal with violence, domestic abuse, parents, you know, being abusive to us, or whatever it is. There are different reasons why we feel the way that we feel at the moment, and it's because we haven't unpicked those things. But sometimes there can be a fine line between acknowledging what happened to us and being stuck in the blame of things that we can't change. So, you know, I mean, the fact that I've been in so many different types of relationships that have been abusive, I can't change that person's behavior, and I can't change what happens. What I can do is change the impact that it's had on my life. And sometimes without realizing, we can get trapped and stuck in that person did this to me, that, you know, that relationship did that to me, white people have done this to me, racism have done this to me. And so you get trapped in all of the external things. And it's kind of like it's a defense mechanism. You know, it's a defense mechanism against, you know, the work that we really need to do. The work is, how are these things impacted how I feel about myself? How have these things impacted me as a black woman? How have these impacted my ability to parent? How have these things impacted my ability to love? That is the courageous work. That is the courageous work. And if you're in a situation now where you're tired of, you know, waiting for other people to change, or thinking that other people are going to be different, if you're tired of all of that, that is a huge green flag that you are ready to start to do the inner work. Because doing all that blaming and everything, it can become exhausting. And can become exhausting. And actually, you're handing over your power. You're giving away your power when you do that. You're giving away your power when you focus on the external and focus on what other people have done, and expecting other people to change so that you can feel comfortable. The work in those situations is figuring out the impact that it's had on you, and then learning how to set boundaries. That's the work. That's part of the healing process. Learning how to understand how it's impacted you as a human being, as a black woman, and then thinking about, okay, where do I need to set boundaries? Where do I need to sever ties with people that have just got no respect for who I am as a black woman? Where do I need to set boundaries around white people or white spaces that do not allow me to be myself, that do not allow me to celebrate who I am as a black person, that feel intimidated by who I am, you know, as a black woman. You know, I was working with a lady, and I've worked with several women actually, but this comes up a lot, where they're in white spaces and it's unsafe for them to speak up, because, you know, as far as they're concerned, you know, the subtext is, well, you need to stay in your place. As a black woman, you need to stay in your place. You're not allowed to you're not allowed to shine any of your melanin magic. You're not allowed to thrive and be intelligent and smart. You need to stay in your place. Okay? And that is painful. To have to hold on to that, you know, is exhausting, and it's painful. And if you're feeling in that space now where you realize that staying small feels more uncomfortable than the pain of change, that's when you know you're ready to start doing the healing work. Let me say that again. When the pain of when staying small feels more painful than the pain is going to take to change, then the discomfort is going to take to change, that's when you know you're really ready to start doing the healing process. Thanks for those of you that have just joined. For those of you that have just joined and don't know anything about me, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. So if anything that resonates with you today, and you are, you know, you think you're ready to start doing the healing process, you can click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So that's number 2, okay, is feeling stuck. The topic for today is 5 signs that you're ready to start doing the healing work, okay? So the second thing is about feeling stuck in the blame, feeling stuck of you know, externalizing everything that's wrong in your life and wanting everybody to change, but you don't want to do any of the inner work, or it becomes so painful now that you're getting to a point where you can't continue to blame everybody else anymore, okay? So that's number 2, you're feeling stuck. Number 3, okay, is the pain of low self-esteem. You know something is wrong. You know that you don't feel comfortable in your black skin. You don't feel comfortable as a woman, and you're so tired of feeling, you're so tired of the negative thinking. You're tired of the imposter syndrome, or if you want to call it that, I just like to call it, you know, I think it's still white supremacy, but I know some people still use that term. You're tired of feeling bad about yourself. You're tired of feeling bad about yourself, and you know that you want better. You know that you want bigger. You know that you want to make some sort of change, but you just don't know how. Okay, that is when you know that you're ready to start doing the healing work. You're ready to start reaching out and start to explore and have conversations with people about, okay, well, I need to start looking. I need to start looking and exploring what are the things that they're going to help me understand, or what's going on. Why do I feel like this about myself? Why do I constantly criticize myself? Why am I so hard on myself? These are all questions that are so important for the healing process. But only when you start having those conversations with yourself will you really start to, the universe will start to align. Your ancestors will start to speak to you and call you in, and it will tell you where you need to go, what you need to start doing to actually start to have that healing process start to take place. Okay, so just feeling really tired of feeling bad about yourself, which is number 3, is a really important sign, because we can just do these things because we get used to it, but there's something at core level. And this was kind of, you know, why I knew that I needed to get started with my own process, because I just got so tired of just feeling bad about myself. I got tired of hiding. And keeping myself small. And I wanted to learn what it meant to love myself. I heard, you know, people throw that slogan around all the time. Oh, you have to learn how to love yourself. But I didn't see a lot of people, number 1, telling me how to do it. And number 2, how do you do that as a black woman when we're still living under a system that is anti-black? What does that actually look like? What does it mean on practical terms? What does love yourself actually mean? Do you know what that actually means? I had to learn that over time. And it's something that takes practice. It's something that takes exploration, and it takes a lot of courage. Because in order to love yourself, you have to first be willing to look at the reasons why you don't love yourself. And that means having to look at things that are painful. It means having to go back into your history, maybe look at where you learned to not love yourself. Was there stuff that was going on in your family? You have to be willing to look at your own family history. Okay, because a lot of times, you know, from my own experience and for the women that I work with, you know, they have to look back in childhood, and they have to look at the relationships with parents, and sometimes that's painful, you know. And that's sometimes one of the reasons why people don't want to do this work, or they avoid doing this work, because they feel they don't want to go back and have that conversation. And in that instance, obviously, then you're not ready to do the work, okay? Because doing the work means that you have to have those difficult conversations, and it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens overnight. I couldn't have that conversation when I first started, but I knew that I needed to have the conversation, but I wasn't actually ready to actually have it come out of my mouth. So what I did initially is I just found myself in spaces that I could begin to understand who I am, and to begin to understand what self-hate is, to begin to understand... Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. I needed to be able to understand what it means. Okay, I just needed to be around. I just needed to find a safe space. That was the first thing. That was the first thing for me. You know, I just needed to find somewhere that was safe, and this is the reason why. You know, if you join the mastermind, the Black Women's Mastermind that I have, you know, every other weekend we do like a healing circle check-in. And that means that, you know, we learn about the characteristics of self-hate. You have to understand your own dysfunction before you can transform it into something else. You know, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of, you know, immaterial out there in the wellness space that always talks about, you know, all the positive stuff. They always talk about the positive stuff. They want to talk about oh, you know, you need to be positive, you need to be motivated, inspirational, all of that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is good in one sense, but it's only temporary. And that's not doing the work. And that's not doing the work. Doing the work means that you have to be willing to look at look at your own dysfunction. Look at your own survival behaviors that might have, you know, helped you survive in that moment, but long term they're having a detrimental impact on your ability to connect with other people. Okay, so in the healing circle we do the characteristics of self-hate, because you need to understand how it shows up. Okay, hi Faye, thanks for joining. You have to be able to willing to understand that for yourself. If you're not willing to understand and do the shadow work, as they call it, and look at how self-hate shows up, then you're not ready to do the work. Okay, you need to be able to understand that. So I share the characteristics of self-hate to give people, it doesn't necessarily mean that they identify with every single one. There's 12 that I've put down. They don't necessarily identify with every single one, but it starts to get the brain going and sort of thinking about, okay, well, I'll do that, and I'll do that because of X, Y, Z, so I need to do that. You know, it just starts the conversation. Okay, and that's another reason why we have the tools. So you understand your own dysfunction, then the tools for empowerment are going to give you the practical things that you need to be doing in order to deal with the self-hate. Okay, and then the gifts, okay, the gifts of sacred self-love are what can happen when you do the work. So you understand the dysfunction, you got the tools to deal with the dysfunction, and then you understand what you've got to look forward to if you do the work. Okay, so that's what happens in the healing circle. So if you're stuck, okay, in your own self-hate, your own shame, you don't like yourself, okay, that is why the healing circle is important. And that's, if you're stuck and you're frustrated about feeling that about yourself, that's when you know you're ready to do the work. Okay, that's when you know it's time for you to start exploring what doing the work means. Okay, so that's number 3. Okay, you're stuck in low self-esteem, you're stuck in the shame, and you just want answers. Okay, you want to learn how to love yourself. That's number 3. Number 4 is people pleasing. Okay, people pleasing. You're so tired, you're done with doing stuff what you think other people expect you to do, and that's a huge one, because when we have low self-esteem, when we don't love ourselves, when we don't know who we are, we deal with that by trying to meet other people's expectations, by trying to rescue other people, by trying to you know, you're overgiving with other people, and then you end up just feeling resentful and upset because your needs don't get met. Hi Ruth, thanks for joining. Your needs never get met because you're always doing stuff for other people. Okay, and that long term is exhausting, and it just leads to, you know, you're just going to end up with black woman burnout. You're just going to end up with black woman burnout. And for us as black women as well, you know, it's even more important for us because as nurturers, and you know, and black women are always in that position of, we're supposed to be the mules for everybody else. We're the ones that are supposed to always be taking care of everybody else, and our needs don't get met. You know, and that is tiring and it's exhausting. And sometimes we struggle to say no. We struggle to say no because everybody is so used to black women just you know, being the mule for everybody else, and so we end up saying yes. And that's how a lot of times that's how we've learned to be in relationship. So that's how we get our sense of worth, by doing things for other people. Meanwhile, we still don't have a good sense of self. Internally, we don't have a good sense of self. We don't know how to love ourselves because our sense of self-worth, our validation only comes from external sources. Okay? And when you're tired of doing all of that, that's when you know that you're ready to start the healing process. Because starting the healing process means you're going to have to learn how to really own the fact that you've allowed other people to dictate who you are. You've allowed other people to dictate, you know, your sense of worth. And starting the healing process means that you're going to have to look at that and explore, you know, the impact that's had on your life, and actually start to explore what your needs are. Okay? As a black woman as well, the code switching is real, you know. And one of the things that's kind of, you know, made me laugh is with one of the ladies in my group was talking about, you know, during lockdown and everything like that, they've worked a lot from home. She's worked from home a lot more, so she's had a situation where she works in a predominantly white space, and you know, she was saying that, you know, when lockdown and stuff, you know, lifts and they end up going back to work, that she just felt uncomfortable because she'd got so used to not switching her behavior. And it wasn't something that she was doing consciously. She didn't even realize that she was doing it. And for a lot of us, that's the truth. We don't even realize that that's what we do, because that's kind of like a survival behavior for a lot of us. Okay, the code switching is kind of like a survival behavior for a lot of us. So we just do it without thinking about it. But it's only when she took time out, okay, and this was during the first lockdown, when we were all completely just like at home, whatever, that we just ended up doing this behavior because we didn't know any different. But it's only then we have to go back into the office and be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to deal with, you know, being in it. What does that mean? What is that going to mean for my behavior? You know, how are they going to treat me if I decide to rock up at work, you know, in all my melanin magic glory? You know, what is that going to look like? And so the fact that there's a space, okay, there was a space in the mastermind for her to not only explore it, but to also think about, to also talk about the fear of being visible in white spaces. And how do I navigate those white spaces? How do I set boundaries in white spaces? How do I tell my friend? How do I say in the workplace that, you know, that they don't really want to have conversations about Black Lives Matter or racism or whatever? Because sometimes having those conversations in white spaces at work or whatever is unsafe. And even though there may be well-meaning people at your workspace that you know that mean well, that are trying to show that, you know, maybe they think that they're allies or whatever it is, you know, you don't have to get into that position of feeling that, oh, you know, I have to engage in conversation about how I feel about what's going on because I don't want to hurt the white person's feelings who's trying to be culturally sensitive and trying to be an ally. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe them anything. Okay, your well-being has to come first, and you can still politely say thank you for your concern, but you know, I don't really want to talk about that right now. Okay, but and a lot of the people that I work with, they don't even know that conversation was allowed because they're so used to code switching and they're so used to, you know, worrying about white feelings before they think about their own feelings that it's just automatic. Okay, but having a safe space to explore a lot of that stuff, especially in a space like you know, in space like the mastermind, because it gives them permission. It gives them permission to have that conversation with themselves, with other Black women, okay, who are going to affirm and identify with how they feel. So, so room to talk. Hi Dee, thanks for joining. How can I be Black in a white space? Often leads to isolation and loneliness. Absolutely, and this is the reason why having a safe space to be able to share about a lot of this stuff is important. That's when you know you're ready to do the healing work. Not just the healing work, but the cultural healing work. Okay? When I talk about healing work, I'm not just talking about healing work in the general context. I'm also talking about the healing work as it relates to you being a Black woman. And this is one of the core reasons why the women come to choose to come and work with me. It's because I help them understand the conversations within a cultural context. Not just how do you feel about it, but how do you feel about it as a Black woman. And that so often is missed in so many well-being spaces because those conversations are misunderstood. A lot of times those conversations are not allowed, and especially if the wellness space is mixed, if it's unsafe to have those conversations. So, and that is, you know, as a Black woman, if you can't have that conversation, okay, as part of your healing process, then that your healing process, there's stuff missing. There's going to be parts of your healing process or you're never going to be able to really heal fully. Because being a Black person, being a Black woman, living under the system of racism and sexism, you need to be able to have both of those conversations about what it means to be Black and what it means to be a woman. Okay? And if you're sick and tired of sitting in that space where you can't have those conversations, then you are ready to start the cultural healing process. So Dee's also saying Black women rescuing their white colleagues, mammying, nurturing the white child. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, the mammying conversation. That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. Your white feelings then become more important than your feelings as a Black woman. And it's okay to say no. But sometimes saying no, you need a space to be able to give yourself permission to say no in the group. You need to be able to speak this stuff out loud. Because for a lot of people, it's scary to have that conversation. To even think it is scary, because then people worrying about, oh, you know, what are they going to think about me? And obviously, in this climate at the moment with COVID and everything, everybody's there's a lot of people that are concerned about how they show up at work for fear that they might lose their job. So, you know, making sure that you don't upset white people is something that is a concern. So it's important to have a space for you to be able to have honest conversations about this, to be able to talk about this stuff, okay? So if you're ready to start this cultural healing process, you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So that's number 4, the people pleasing. And number 5, the final reason why that you may be ready, the sign that you'll be ready for your healing process, is just feeling overwhelmed with emotion. Sorry, apologies for that. I should have forgot to turn it off. Is it being overwhelmed with emotion? Okay, being overwhelmed with emotion. Sometimes, especially with everything that's gone on this year, a lot of us are so tired of holding on, suppressing emotion, pretending that we don't feel anything, soldiering on. A lot of us are tired. A lot of us are tired of holding on to all of this stuff. And if you think about everything that's gone on this year, you think about all the stuff that's gone on with COVID, you think about all the stuff that's gone on in terms of the racial unrest, the Black Lives Matter, you're thinking about all of the stuff that's gone on in terms of the US election. Even though we live in the UK, there's still an impact. When you see somebody like Donald Trump in a position of power, okay, this openly sharing their white supremacist views and all the rest of it, it's going to have an impact on us. It's still going to have an impact on us because it's still somebody in a position of power behaving in ways that are oppressive and that have an impact on us. That stuff is going to be oppressive and it's painful. You know, and if you don't have a safe space to be able to share any of that stuff, if you're not seeing a therapist, if you're not in a support group, if you don't have supportive friends that are going to be able to hear you when you're talking about your upset, and very, very difficult. Sorry, let me just do this now. This person is adamant on trying to call me. Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult for you to hold that. And you're not a mule. Okay, just know that you're not a mule and you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be heard. You don't have to hold all that stuff in. But like I was saying before at the beginning, sometimes we're so used to holding on to all of that stuff. We're so used to not expressing that stuff to other people. We're so used to trying to play like, oh, I'm the strong black woman and I don't need anybody. I call that compulsive self-reliance. Okay? Compulsive self-reliance really is fear. Compulsive self-reliance is really fear. What's really underneath all of that is, I am hurt, I'm upset, but I'm scared to open up to anybody because I'm scared that they're going to judge me. Okay, so all of this strong black woman stuff, you don't have to do that. But also I understand that you need to be in a position, you need to be in a space where you feel safe to be able to share that stuff. You need to feel safe in order to start the healing process. And as I said all the time, as I said so many times in previous live streams, there is no healing without safety. There is no healing process without safety. Okay, so what I mean by that is, and actually if you go into the live stream that I did last week, the live stream that I did last week was all about what does emotional safety mean for black women? What does it mean within the context of being a black woman? So that means being able to, you know, express yourself, be vulnerable, to share your pain in a space with somebody or in a group where you're not going to be judged, where they're not going to shame you for telling the truth. Okay? For a lot of us, we weren't allowed to be emotional. We weren't allowed to be vulnerable. You know, I hear this a lot from a lot of black people. They always telling me, oh, don't be emotional. You have to control your emotion. You know, and it's used as a shaming tactic. Okay, and what I want to share with you is the reason why so many of us are overwhelmed is because we don't have a relationship with ourselves. in order to deal with the emotion, or we're so used to having to swallow it and suck it up that it's now becoming overwhelmed, and we're finding ourselves behaving in ways and doing things as a way for us to release emotion. And quite often it means that we're doing things and behaving in certain ways with people because really emotions that are not being honored, they end up being transformed or into other ways onto other people. So as an example of that might be you're upset with the pressure and stuff that you're feeling at work. You're upset with what's going on in terms of being in these white spaces at work and not being able to be yourself, but you can't talk to them directly about it because you're afraid. So what you do is you come home and you end up in an argument with your partner, or you end up in an argument with your children. So that upset that you're feeling about the white spaces, it gets transferred onto somebody else. And when you're in that place of overwhelm, that is going to keep happening because you don't understand it. A lot of this happens unconsciously as well, because you don't understand that that's what you're doing, because you're just in the emotion. You're in the emotion. And just know this, your emotions are not your enemy. The emotion only becomes the enemy when you ignore it, when you don't give yourself permission to honor it. Your emotions are your allies. Your emotions will tell you that you're doing too much, that somebody's crossed your boundary, that you need to stop going to that place, that you need to leave that workplace, that you need to set boundaries around that relationship. A lot of times we get so hell-bent and obsessed with trying to control the emotion that we miss the gifts that our emotions are trying to teach us. And as black people, we've been taught to suppress our emotion as well, because white supremacy is like, well, you're not human. You're not a human being, so you're not allowed to feel anything. We've told that of ourselves. So we carry on that. And even if you go back to when you go back to the plantation as well, you think about our ancestors on the plantation. If they showed emotion, okay, that could often mean death. If they showed emotion on the plantation, it could mean death. Okay? So if you think about it within that context, and you think about that being passed down through the generations, it makes sense why so many of us, feeling our emotion, feels unsafe. And then you have things like parents that will say to their children, stop crying or else I'm going to give you something to cry about. That's an example of how this stuff gets passed down, and how we've been trained to be so disconnected from our emotion that it just becomes overwhelming. We become overwhelmed because we don't understand what's going on, we don't understand the context, and we don't know what to do with our feelings. That's another thing. And I sometimes experience it, that we just feel so full and overwhelmed with our emotions that we just feel like, I can't even talk about it. I can't even give myself permission to cry, because if I start crying, I'm not going to be able to stop. If I start crying, I'm not going to be able to stop. And I'm here to let you know that those things are okay, but you just need a safe space to be able to do it. You just need a safe space to be able to do it. You know? And it's just safety and having that person understand what's going on for you as a black woman. That's an important part of the healing process. Okay? So Dee's saying transgenerational trauma is so deep. Thanks for speaking on this. We are genetically trained. Yeah, 100%. We've been taught. And once you begin to understand what we've been taught, this is why understanding the impact of racism along with your healing process is important, because it gives you context about how it relates to you as a black woman. It gives you context. But you're not going to understand a lot of that if you're doing it by yourself. If you're doing it by yourself, or you're stuck in the blame, or you're stuck in the self-hate, the shame, or you're stuck in trying to please white people, or please your parents, or please your whoever that wants you to behave a certain way. When you get stuck in all of that, you're going to be overwhelmed by it. And it's time for you to start thinking about your needs. It's time for you to start thinking about your needs, okay? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling tired of holding on to stuff, and sometimes you don't even know what you're holding on to, because you're so used to carrying it all. You don't know what you're holding on to. You know, I'll finish on this by just sharing an experience I had this week with my therapist. And one of the things that I realised that I was carrying, I didn't realise I was carrying it. I was carrying toxic contracts. Okay, I was carrying toxic contracts that I didn't make, that there were things that I told myself about situations that were kind of like a survival behaviour. I told myself that in order for me to stay safe, I'm never going to let anyone get close to me. I'm not going to let only to a certain degree, you know. And I didn't even realise that this was kind of like my deeper thinking around certain things, around relationships. Because of the violence I experienced as a child, I made a toxic contract with myself that I was never going to let anyone get close to me because it was too painful. Because intimacy means abuse. That's what it is. Intimacy means abuse. So I made that contract, that unconscious contract when I was a child, that I was never going to let anyone get close to me. And the revelation in just owning that and giving myself permission to just shed the tears that kind of relate to that, it's given me permission to just understand, you know, a lot of my own, you know, the difficulties that I've had in relationships, you know, and it's so powerful just to be able to say that stuff out loud with my therapist. So somebody's saying, could it be post-traumatic stress disorder? Absolutely. Absolutely, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the work that I've been doing with my therapist. Been doing a lot of trauma work with my therapist, and it's been mind-blowing. Hi Tinu, thanks for joining. It's been mind-blowing. You know, I've been working with this particular therapist for not that long actually, a few months. But I love working with her because, you know, we're really going at it, doing the trauma work. And it just, you know, trauma work is going to be different for different people, but it's been so empowering and it's been so amazing. So when I talk about, you know, the signs that you're ready to do the healing process, there are different layers to the healing process. Okay, if you're completely new to this, if you're completely new to the healing process, it might be that, you know, you start at a really gentle basic level. So you're learning to understand your feelings, you're learning to understand what the characteristics are of self-hate, you're understanding what it means to live under the system of racism, all of that kind of stuff. So somebody's asking me, have you been doing EMDR? Yes, I've been doing EMDR. I've been doing EMDR, yes, absolutely. And it's been mind-blowing. So if you're new to all of the doing this work, then you start at those levels. But for me, I was ready to go to the next level of the healing process, which meant doing the trauma work, doing a deeper trauma work. Okay, and it's been mind-blowing. So wherever you are in the process, okay, these things will you know, some of them will apply, some of them don't, but you know where you are in the process. You know where you are in the process, and it's for you to keep having those conversations. This is why having a safe space is important, because you can continue to keep having those conversations with yourself and understand, okay, well, where am I at the moment? What am I doing at the moment? What's working? What's not working? Why am I feeling frustrated? And all the rest of it. It's a journey. You got to understand this is a journey, you know. And this is something that I'll be talking about in December next month. We'll be doing the masterclass we're going to be doing is all about, you know, reviewing the year, looking at where you are at the moment in your process. What have you learned? What didn't work? What do you need going forward? And all of that, just kind of in preparation for all of the stuff that I'm going to be teaching next year, which is all going to be about self-love, and how important it is to love yourself when it comes to being in relationship. Okay, that stuff is really important. So that's it, everybody. So those are the 5 signs that you're ready to start the healing process. So number 1 is loneliness. Okay, you're tired of doing this stuff by yourself. Number 2, you feel stuck. You're tired of blaming everybody else externally, and you're ready to start looking internally. Okay. Number 3, you're tired and exhausted of hating yourself, being the way you do, why you don't love yourself as a black woman. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is people pleasing. You're tired of the people pleasing, you're tired of the code switching, and you need some answers and tools as to what you can do to actually start to really get to know yourself and do it unapologetically. And number 5 is the overwhelm. Okay, you're tired of you're tired of just holding all the stuff that you want to take the time to start to just release the emotions and doing it in a safe way, in a safe space. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. If there's questions that you have about anything that you've heard from me today, you can send me a message, you can send me a DM, or you can drop a comment below, or you can email me info@gardenofgreatness.com. If you would like to join the Black Women's Mastermind, the Sacred Sister Sanctuary, click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.